I call to order the Committee on House Administration for today's committee markup, and a quorum is present so that we can proceed. The meeting record will remain open for 5 legislative days so that members might submit any materials that they wish to be included therein. And today we're going to consider 4 items. House Resolution 132, which is the Omnibus Committee Funding Resolution, which will authorize committee budgets for the 114th Congress. Committee Resolution 114-6 to approve franked mail limitations for committees for the 114th. H.R.195, which is the Election Assistance Commission Termination Act, as well as H.R.412, a bill to redirect federal dollars to pediatric research and reduce the deficit by terminating taxpayer financing of presidential election campaigns. Every Congress, this committee holds hearings to receive input from the chair and ranking members of standing House committees to help set appropriate funding levels for each committee. The passage of this resolution is vital. Each committee needs appropriate resources for the entire 114th Congress. And throughout this process, our committee has taken great care when examining the funding levels to be authorized for each committee so that the priorities of the House and the American people especially are put front and center. And I want to thank all of the committee chairs and the ranking members who appeared before us for their very thoughtful submissions to our committee regarding their individual budgets and for their insightful testimony during our hearings that we had for 2 full days. I'm glad that each committee has continued their commitment to uphold the equitable 2/3, 1/3 allocation between majority and minority offices so that all the views are properly represented and heard. Also, every chair and ranking member has worked with one another in a cooperative and collaborative manner in developing their budget priorities, which will aid them greatly as they continue to focus on the important work before them in conducting their legislative and oversight work. I believe strongly that the funding resolution that we'll approve today will allow each committee the resources that they need to achieve legislative solutions to all of the challenging issues within their jurisdiction and which are facing our great nation. And in the last several years, the Committee on House Administration has led by example, improving committee budgets over the last 4 fiscal years that reduced spending by committees and member offices to levels below what was spent actually in 2007. And we've worked hard to find solutions that deliver savings, allowing us to reprioritize spending so that we can do the important work carrying out the wishes of the American people. And after much deliberation and consultations, we have to make decisions that reflect the mission of each committee as well as the House as a whole. Therefore, with few exceptions, most of the committees will be receiving funding levels, level fundings with what it received for the 113th Congress. There is a need for targeted additional resources directed toward new priorities and emerging challenges, and as a House, we have a responsibility to meet that need. Some of these increases that we'll be talking about today are very modest, very targeted, and it doesn't require any new spending in the House's overall budget, only redirecting already approved resources to new priorities. We remain committed to ensuring the House operates in a fiscally responsible manner. Each of our committees have the responsibility to produce legislation that will make our nation stronger and conduct effective oversight that makes government work in the cost-effective way the American people are demanding. Many of our committees have already expressed a need for more field hearings across the country. This would make sure that Washington hears directly from the American people and that they are gathering first-hand knowledge of how federal programs are functioning and their impact on the American people. Additionally, I'd like to note that the dedicated committee staffers are a critical component to making sure each committee functions effectively and is working hard amidst the increasing challenges to conduct effective and needed oversight, investigations, as well as hearings both in Washington and across the country. It takes professional staff to plan and to see through these actions, and that is not something that can be overlooked either. In summary, what we are proposing is modest, targeted increases in some of the committees to meet the House committee's oversight needs. And I hope that each member of our committee and of this House will concur in the priorities that we've set forth in this funding resolution and allow each of our committees to continue with their important work. Now, the second item for consideration excuse me, in today's markup is a committee resolution to approve frank mail limitations for committees for the 114th Congress. And this resolution is limited to $5,000 per year for each committee's mail. And I believe this is an appropriate level that will meet the needs of each of our committees. Our third item for consideration is a bill introduced by our colleague from Mississippi, Mr. Harper, to eliminate the Election Assistance Commission, the EAC. The EAC is an agency that was created to help distribute funds allocated by Congress after the 2000 election through the Help America Vote Act. It's certainly clear that the EAC has far outlived its purpose and no longer benefits voters or election officials. Yet, despite an original sunset date of 2005, it continues to exist. Even though until very recently the EAC was without commissioners for the past 4 years, during which time 2 federal elections have been conducted. This fact proves that this agency is not necessary in conducting federal elections, in my opinion. The EAC has no more money to give out to states, and it's almost certain that no more money will be appropriated for this purpose. The Research Division of the EAC has completed the reports required by the HAVA Act of 2002. Additional areas that could benefit from any new research and information sharing are being explored already by universities and private associations of election officials. Our fourth and final item for consideration centers on the Presidential Election Campaign Fund, or the PECF. Last Congress, Mr. Harper again led the way for passage into law a bill that eliminated a portion of this. This bill, called the Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act, H.R. 2019, redirected millions of dollars in taxpayer money previously provided to political parties for their national conventions to enhance funding for pediatric research. And today we'll revisit that issue by considering the bill H.R. 412. This legislation would eliminate the PECF altogether. This bill, which was introduced by Representative Tom Cole from Oklahoma, takes the current balance of the PECF, which is $263 million, and redirects $88 million of it to pediatric research. And the remaining balance of the PECF would be sent back to the U.S. Treasury for deficit reduction. The original intent of the PECF was to instill greater public confidence in the presidential election campaigns, but in recent decades, the PECF has lost the support of taxpayers and candidates alike. A clear example of this fact is that the taxpayers are voting with their feet by not checking the box on their tax forms that is used to fund the PECF. At its peak of popularity in 1980, about 29% of the filers participated. In 2013, the most recent year of which we have data, that dropped to approximately 6%. So I believe we have a responsibility to listen to the American people who are telling us this is a program they no longer support or wish to fund, and candidates are telling us they don't want it either, and I think we need to eliminate the PECF. At this time, I'd like to recognize my colleague and the committee's ranking member, Mr. Brady, for the purpose of an opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to begin by thanking you for the manner in which you have conducted these funding processes. I believe that we had a good opportunity to hear from committee chairs and ranking members on their funding needs. Everyone made a very compelling argument, which makes our jobs more difficult. While I think that all of us would like to be in a position to provide increases to support the hard work of our committees, the reality is we must prioritize. I believe that the funding levels established by this resolution go a long way towards that goal, and I encourage my colleagues to support it, and I yield back and thank you.
Thank the gentleman very much. Chair recognizes Mr. Harper from Mississippi for an opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, it's been 6 years since my first oversight hearing with the Election Assistance Commission as a member of this committee, and 4 years since I first introduced legislation to terminate the EAC. Since that time, the agency's actions, or lack thereof, have proven that it is not necessary to the conduct of federal elections. It is an unnecessary expenditure of taxpayer funds. The EAC initially had a 3-year mandate, but as with most government programs, it found a way to maintain its existence. Unfortunately, it has become a bloated bureaucracy that mismanaged taxpayer dollars and has been the subject of 2 discrimination hiring lawsuits. The remaining EAC functions, to the extent they are useful, can be performed more efficiently by other government or private entities. The best course we can take as the EAC's Committee of Jurisdiction is to dissolve the agency and end its wasteful spending. The EAC has outlived its useful life. The Commission was originally designed to distribute money and oversee the upgrade of states' voting machines to make sure we didn't have another butterfly ballot situation. The EAC has distributed over $3.1 billion to states for machine upgrades and election improvements, and that stream of funding has long ended. The EAC's testing and certification program serves little purpose. This onerous, costly program is outdated and stifles innovation in the elections community. And again, these functions can better be performed by other government or private entities as they once were. The EAC only recently gained a quorum of commissioners after going 4 years from December 2010 to January 2015 without one. The Commission also has lacked an executive director since December 2011 and general counsel since May of 12, prohibiting them from conducting official business for over 3 years. And the country does not seem to have noticed. Yet despite this absence of any mission or leadership, the agency is still receiving an appropriation of $10 million. And remember that in 2012, when there were some election issues in that election, the President didn't refer those over to the EAC, he created a commission. Wasting money on ineffective, useless agencies like the EAC is yet another example of irresponsible government spending. We need to finally put an end to this. This agency has outlived its usefulness, and to continue to fund it is the definition of irresponsibility. Now, this is not a conclusion that we have come to lightly. We've put in the time and effort through hearings and meetings with experts and election officials and come to the conclusion this agency needs to go. It's an opinion that's shared by others. The National Association of Secretaries of State adopted resolutions not once but twice calling for the dissolution of the EAC in 2005 and again in 2010. It is simply time to end the EAC and save American taxpayers $10 million a year in a time when our nation is bleeding money. It doesn't get any easier to find an example of wasteful spending. If we can't eliminate this agency, we might as well pack up and go home because this is as obvious as it gets. Chairman Miller, thank you for the time, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman very much. Is there any other members that wish to be recognized for an opening statement before we call up the funding resolution? Hearing none, I now call up and lay before the committee H.Res.132, which is the Omnibus Committee funding resolution. Without objection, the first reading of the resolution is dispensed with, and the resolution is considered read and open for amendment at any point. Is there any debate? I know all the members have received copies of the funding resolution. I think we've had a lot of discussion, certainly when we had our hearings, as well as in the last couple of weeks individually, as we tried to do our very best to meet the needs of what the committees were looking for and very limited amount of money that we had to go around. Any debate at all? Any members that want to offer an amendment to the resolution? If not, I move that the committee favorably report H.Res.132. The question is on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair is the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Is there any member that wishes to file a supplemental or a minority or additional views for inclusion in the committee report to the House? Mr. Brady.
Madam Chair, I announced that the Democratic members were requested 2 additional calendar days provided by Clause 2L of Rule 11 of the Rules of the House in order to file views.
I appreciate the gentleman offering, and pursuant to Clause 2 of Rule 11, the member is entitled to 2 additional calendar days to file such views in writing and signed by that member with the clerk of the committee. I now call up and lay before the committee resolution 114-6, which is a resolution to approve the franked mail limitations for committees for the 114th Congress. Without objection, the first reading of the resolution is dispensed with, and the resolution is considered read and open for amendment at any point. Is there any debate? Are there any members that want to offer an amendment to the resolution? If not, I move the committee adopt the resolution, and the question is on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. In my opinion, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I now call up and lay before the committee H.R.195, which is the Election Assistance Commission Termination Act. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, excuse me, and the bill is considered read and open for amendment at any point. Is there any debate? Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have said on many occasions that 95% of what we do as a committee is done on a bipartisan basis. Unfortunately, this is one of the few instances in which we respectfully disagree. I believe that rather than abolishing the Election Assistance Commission, we should be working to reform the agency. For the first time in 4 years, the agency has a quorum of commissioners. During their first meeting last week, the 3 newly appointed commissioners, 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, work cooperatively on a bipartisan basis. I believe this is an important step in the right direction, and I believe that they should have the opportunity to continue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the chairman. Any other debate? Hold on. Any members want to offer an amendment to the bill?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute to the bill in which the member is in the members' packets. Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment in the nature of a substitute allows the EAC to continue their critically important mission. It reauthorizes the agency through 2020 and provides for methods to identify potential cost-saving and efficiency improvements of both the EAC and the administration of election for federal office. Rather than abolishing the agency, I believe that we should support reform efforts, and this amendment accomplishes this goal, and I urge its adoption.
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. Are there any other members that wish to be recognized to speak on Mr. Brady's amendment? Mr. Harper.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to speak in opposition to the amendment offered by Mr. Brady. First of all, let's keep in mind that the EAC originally was designed to last for 3 years. It has long outlived its usefulness. While I certainly appreciate and enjoy always working with Mr. Brady, the fact is this amendment does not reform the EAC. It actually expands it and includes no reforms or efficiencies. What it actually does is reauthorize the EAC through the year 2020. It forces states to submit information the EAC asks for in post-election surveys and removes the EAC from OMB oversight under the Paperwork Reduction Act, so there is no control over what information they demand. It also gives EAC more power over states, shifts burdens from states to EAC. And it really doesn't address any of the real problems in the history we've had with the EAC. It'll make the EAC more powerful, not more efficient. And the fact is we don't need this. And keep in mind that we already have seen a presidential commission recommending best practices to the states. So this is duplicative in that regard and not necessary. So I urge members to vote in opposition, to vote no to this amendment.
Thank the gentleman. Any other members have any other comments? I would just offer my own comment as a former Secretary of State. I was a secretary in Michigan when the Help America Vote Act went through, and our state, along with so many others, received an awful lot of federal dollars for us to improve our some of our antiquated voting machines, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the purpose of the EAC, to really help all the states spend those dollars and hold the states accountable for making sure that they were spent within the confines of what the Congress was had an expectation of them. But the truth is, and we've had these conversations when we had our hearing here with the Ginsburg-Bauer Presidential Commission that was put together by President Obama, actually. Well, they went out and talked to a number of the secretaries and the secretaries of states, et cetera, and I think the secretaries do understand that that was a one-time infusion of funds that is not going to be happening again, particularly with the budgetary constraints that the federal government has. And so, although the EAC certainly had a role to play, I just don't think it has a role to play any longer. And so I would associate myself with Mr. Harper's remarks, and I appreciate the amendment from my ranking member, but I will be in opposition to that. Again, any other comments? The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman to H.R.195. Excuse me. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed will say no. No. In the opinion of the chairs, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. Any other amendments? If not, I move that the committee favorably report H.R.195, and the question is on the motion. Those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed will say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Does any member wish to file supplemental, minority, or additional views for inclusion in the committee report to the House?
Madam Chair,
Brady?
thank you. I announce that the Democratic members were requested 2 additional calendar days provided by Clause 2L of Rule 11 of the Rules of the House in order to file views.
I thank the gentleman, and pursuant to Clause 2 of Rule 11, the member is entitled to 2 additional calendar days to file such views in writing and signed by that member with the clerk of the committee. I now call up and lay before the committee H.R. 412, which is a bill to reduce federal spending and the deficit by terminating taxpayer financing of presidential election campaigns. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill is considered read and open for amendment at any point. Is there any debate on this bill? Are there any members that want to offer an amendment to the bill? If not, I move that the committee favorably report H.R. 412, and the question is on the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Does any member wish to file supplemental, minority, or additional views for inclusion in the committee report to the House?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I announce that the Democratic members were requested 2 additional calendar days provided by Clause 2L of Rule 11 of the Rules of the House in order to file views.
Pursuant to Clause 2 of Rule 11, the member is entitled to 2 additional calendar days to file such views in writing and signed by that member with the clerk of the committee. For all of the matters that the committee has considered today, I would ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make technical and conforming changes if necessary. Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Brady.
And Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent to insert the record a letter from Common Cause relating to election legislation considered today.
Without objection. Any other comments or debate? Well, this concludes today's markup. I certainly want to thank all the members. I think we did very good work, particularly with the committee funding, and I think that will really position our committees as we go forward, as they go forward, to have the necessary resources that they need to be able to meet the missions and what the Congress has tasked them with. And without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Wow.
Thank you.
That was easy enough. Thanks. Good job, Kyle.
Have a good couple of weeks.
Yes.